I won't ever give up, and I won't ever back down, and I will fight. I'll fight with everything I've got. Hi, my name is Jennifer. I am Kyle's aunt, and I have been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I can remember back to 2015 going on girls' trips with my sister and my niece and my great niece. We went to Walt Disney World, and I can remember that I would be walking around and I would feel like my leg was extremely tired and that it was dragging and that I was going to trip. And so I remember walking around just being really careful about how I stepped, how I walked, and it would get better and I would do fine. And after we would eat supper and nighttime would come, I can remember being able to walk and being able to move around like normal, but during the day when it would get warmer, I struggled more. And so I just started avoiding going places, basically. But then it wasn't too much longer after that when I would begin to go to the grocery store and go do my whole Walmart grocery trip that took about an hour of me pushing the buggy through Walmart. And I can remember by the time I would get to the end of my shopping list, I can remember just feeling that extreme tired feeling in my legs, and remember that pushing the buggy was supporting me to be able to make it through the store. A lot of it was probably pride too, just because I knew I was having this issue, but I was embarrassed to ask for help. I tried to go to the doctor on many occasions. We ran all kinds of tests as far as vitamin deficiencies. Was it my thyroid? Was it, I don't know how many tests that we actually ended up doing. A lot. Going to the doctor, just talking to them, trying to figure out what was going on. But I can remember doing a little bit of Googling of my symptoms, and almost every time that I would Google them, it would pop up with a mention of MS, and I was like, that's not what I've got. That can't be it. It's just something. So we took our first cruise and we stopped at a port in St. Martin, and I was so excited to get down to the beach where the airplanes flew right over the top of the beach. By the time we got to the end or near the end of the dock, I was having to hold on to either my husband or to my sister because I could not continue to walk. My left leg would drag and I would feel like I was going to fall. As soon as I made it to the sandy area of the beach, I was like, I'm just sitting down because I was so tired and I felt like everybody was looking at me. And I can remember sitting in the sand, and I was so hot. And MS and heat does not mix well together. It makes your muscles feel very fatigued. And so Edwin's like, you need to go out to the water. You need to get in the water. He said, this is what you've always waited for. And it was. And I can remember looking at him and I said, I can't stand up. And so, you know, when you hear neurologist, you automatically think, okay, they're going to scan my brain and what are they going to find? And could it be cancer? Could it be, you know, your mind just automatically starts going to all of these things that it could be. He did the nerve study. And then once he completed his nerve study, he set up an appointment to do an MRI. He wanted an MRI of my brain. I can remember getting a notification on my email that Baptist Hospital had the results of my MRI. And I can remember thinking, I don't want to look at that. And I called Pam and told her, and she was like, well, you need to look at it. And so I opened it up, and I remember reading that there are white spots on my brain, which was MS. And I can remember just my heart sinking at that moment. And of course I called my sister first off, and I'm like, Pam, and I told her what the report said. And she was like, Jennifer, just, it's gonna be okay. One thing I can remember telling Pam on the way back down for the second MRI appointment with Dr. Burba, I can remember telling her, I think I want a second opinion. I'm having trouble accepting this. I think I want a second opinion. And so we get in there and I see him, and he just calmed all of my questions. He was able to answer them, and he was able to give me answers, and I felt that I could trust him. And I can remember telling Pam, I said, I don't think I can ever say I had. And she was like, no. She goes, don't say it. Say, I have been diagnosed with. I said, because I have a problem claiming that. I'm not going to claim it. I'm gonna win it. I'm gonna beat it. God's gonna beat it. Growing up in a Christian home, you know, you always put your faith in God. And I've always put my faith in God and believed that He's going to bring me out. And I still believe that to this day. Probably the Sunday after I had received my true diagnosis, I can remember sitting in church and just being down. And you know, you've just received news that you don't want to accept. So it was a Sunday morning, and I can remember one of the ladies walking up to me, and she was like, well, how are you? I hope you're having a great day. And you know, I had just received this news that week, and I was just struggling a little bit. Just self was getting in the way. And I remember telling her, I'm not having a good day. And she was like, well, you know what? I'm going to pray for you that your day gets better. And she turned around and went back to her seat. And so a week went by, and we were back at church again. And the pastor had preached and asked us all to take a moment and pray. And I remember Edwin and I, we just knelt at our seat and we prayed for a little bit, and then we sat back down. And I can remember a lady in the church, and I know her name, and she came over to me and she's like, "Girl, I've got to tell you something." This was the same lady that had asked me how my day was, and I had responded not so positive. And she came over to me and she goes, "Girl, I've got to tell you something." And I was like, "Okay." And she said, "If it doesn't make sense, I'm sorry, just take it, and I hope it means something to you." And I was like, "Okay." I said, what is it?" And she said, and I'm going to read it because I don't want to forget it. And yes, I have laminated it. I had her text it to me because I never wanted to forget. And so she said, "God said this. This is just a season. This is not permanent, and He is pleased with your faith." And I can remember at that time when she said that to me, I broke. Not only did God have this, but He had given me confirmation that He had this. And immediately I just began to sob. And she goes, "So it means something to you?" And I said, "Yes." And I began to tell her what I had just recently been diagnosed with. Probably another week had went by, and it was around the first of the year, and several of the people were doing the 21-day fast. And one of the Sunday school teachers was doing one, and she had told me, she said, "You're one of my people that I'm praying for on my fast." She said, "I am praying for complete and total healing." And so I thanked her for that. And 21 days had came and went. She called me, the lady that had been fasting for me. And she said, "I have to share a word that just dropped into my spirit." She said, "God said, it is no coincidence that your name is Walker. That is not only your identity, but your promise of healing." And she said, "This goes right along with the interpretation this morning. I know your name, said the Lord." He knows my name. He knows who I am. He knows what I'm dealing with. And He knows when I have a hard time. When I say I'm not going to give up, how can I give up? I've got a promise. Not just one, but two. And when I start to have a bad day, or when I start to struggle, I go, "God, you've given me a promise. I'm not giving up. I'm not backing down. I'm going to keep going." And I can remember Him grabbing me, and He was like, and He just immediately grabbed me and hugged me. And that's not like Him in person, in a crowded area. Yes, he hugs me all the time at home and stuff, but it's not like that. But out in public, in church, for Him to just grab me and begin to hug me, and He's sobbing. And He goes, "God showed me that you're going to wake up one morning and it's going to be gone." So not once, not twice, but 3 times, I have a promise. I won't give up, and I won't back down. God has given me a promise, and He's not forgotten me. He has not forsaken me, and He never will. And with that, it's just a renewed strength that I get. Like I tell my family, I say, the day that God heals me, you will hear me, because I am going to shout it from the mountaintop that I've been healed. And I believe that one day I'm going to wake up and it's going to be gone.